You arrive at the gates of Aubagne with nothing but the clothes on your back and a name you've decided to discard. You are looking for a new life, but most of you will find only a shallow grave in the desert or a crushing sense of regret. The French Foreign Legion is the world's most enigmatic fighting force. It is a place where criminals, dreamers, and outcasts wash away their pasts in exchange for a 5-year contract and a new identity. Most people know the horror of the selection process. They know about the relentless marches, the sleep deprivation, and the brutal psychological assessments at Fort de Nogent. But what happens when you stop being a recruit? What happens when you survive the grind, climb the ranks, and actually reach the top? The journey begins at the bottom. You are a legionnaire second class. You are a grunt. You are an asset of the French state. You have no rights to your original nationality inside the barracks. Your salary is roughly 1,300 euros a month, plus hazard pay. You live in a shared room with 7 other men who don't speak your language. You work, you train, and you clean. You spend your weekends polishing boots and ironing uniforms. It is tedious, it is monotonous, it is designed to break your ego. To reach the top, you must first survive the selection and incorporation. This is the first 15 days. Out of every 100 men who show up at the gates, only about 20 will earn the famous white kepi. The rest are sent home with a train ticket and a not suitable stamp on their papers. If you are one of the 20, you head to Castelnaudary. This is the 4th Foreign Regiment. It is 4 months of pure physical hell. You learn to speak French. You learn to march. You learn that in the Legion, the mission comes before your personal desires, your health, and your life. If you don't quit, and most do, you are sent to a combat regiment. This is where the real career begins. The Legion is not a monolith. It is composed of diverse units with distinct specializations. There is the 2nd Foreign Parachute Regiment, based in Calvi. There is the 13th Half Brigade, based in the deserts of Djibouti, or the camps of the Larzac. You start as a corporal, then a sergeant. The ranks of the Legion are earned through blood and bureaucratic endurance. As you rise through the non-commissioned officer ranks, the dynamic shifts. You are no longer just following orders, you are the one enforcing them. You become the backbone of the French military machine. A sergeant in the Legion is a different breed of human. They are the keepers of tradition. They are the ones who translate the orders of the French officers into action on the ground. When you reach the senior NCO tier, you are a major. You are effectively the father figure of your company. You have survived 10, 15, or 20 years of service. You have seen conflicts in Mali, in Afghanistan, and in the Central African Republic. You have seen friends die in the dust of the Sahel. By this point, your past is truly gone. You have likely been naturalized as a French citizen, a process allowed after 3 years of service, or if you are wounded in combat. You have a pension waiting for you. You have a community that is more loyal than any family you left behind. But what does it actually feel like to be at the top? It feels like being an exile in your own country. You have reached the rank of adjutant chef. You are respected, even feared, but you realize that the Legion is a machine that doesn't care about the man. It only cares about the output. You have spent your best years training for wars that were fought for politicians, not for you. You have mastered the art of survival, but you have forgotten the art of living. Reaching the top of the Legion means you have successfully traded your humanity for a code of honor. You have the Code d'honneur du légionnaire memorized in your bones. Article 7 says, "In the fight, you act without passion and without hate. You respect the vanquished. You never abandon your dead or wounded, and you never leave your weapons behind." You have lived by these rules for decades. You have become a professional instrument of violence. Is it worth it? For those who made it, the answer is usually a stoic silence. They have achieved something that 99% of the population cannot even comprehend. They have achieved total autonomy from their past. They don't owe anyone an explanation. They don't owe anyone a story. They are legionnaires for life. Even when they retire to the Institution des Invalides de la Légion étrangère in Puy-Loubier, they are still under the umbrella of the Legion. They work the vineyards, they make the crafts, and they wait for the end. The top of the Legion is not a penthouse office. It is not a place of comfort. The top of the Legion is a realization that you have nowhere else to go. You have traveled the world, you have fought in the shadows of empires, and you have become a ghost of your former self. You have reached the summit of a mountain that has no peak, only a very long, very steep descent. Perhaps the real question isn't what happens when you reach the top. The question is what happens when you realize the person you were before the gates opened is dead, and the person who remains is just a relic of a service that has already replaced you with someone younger, faster, and just as desperate to disappear. The Legion doesn't keep you, it uses you until there is nothing left to use. You are the architect of your own total erasure. You succeeded in leaving your life behind, but in doing so, you left behind the only version of yourself that could ever actually be happy. Was the trade-off worth the kepi on your head, or did you just trade a cage you knew for a cage you chose?